fighter that everybody has.
Moving on now. The wave generated by the sacking of some governors by the courts is yet to die down. The national chairman of the All Progressive Congress, APC, Abdullahi Ganduje, has described the judgment of the Court of Appeal that upheld Nasiru Gawuna as the winner of the 2023 governorship election in Kano State as a victory for democracy. Ganduje said it is a reflection of what transpired in the state during the election. The Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja also declared the governorship election of 18th of March in Zamfara State inconclusive. Justice Nwaka, who read the lead judgment, ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to conduct a fresh election in 3 local government areas, Maradun, Birnin-Magaji and Bukkuyum. Jide, let's first of all start with Kano. The tribunal overturned the election of the governor and getting to the Court of Appeal too. The same thing happened, and this might be the fate at the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
Not taken.
Well, it all depends on the way those judges will look at it. The issue of, there are 2 issues here. The issue of membership of the political party. Judgments had been given in the past that those are party affairs. Remember, even the Presidential Election Petitions Court ruled that Peter Obi could not be disqualified, on account of not being a member of the party. A lot of them, the point I'm making, a lot of the Labour Party people, including those who won the elections, were originally not in Labour Party. They joined the party very late. Yeah. But in Obi versus INEC, the Presidential Elections Court dismissed that case that was brought before it. So they could, the opposition, the rival party could not feast on the fact that Obi was not a member of the party at that time. So when you look at this matter, the Supreme Court had already ruled in something on a matter that was similar to that. That is the argument that Peter Obi was not originally in Labour Party and all that. So, and it was also seen as a pre-election matter. So whether the Supreme Court would deem this as a pre-election matter, only time could tell. If the Supreme Court deems it an election matter, then on that score, the application of the APC will not succeed, because it could then mean that, okay, the Supreme Court was not going to overrule itself. It had already decided on this kind of matter before. Even the Lagos candidate of the APC, of the Labour Party, if you remember, his membership was also challenged, similarly challenged. Yes. So that is one. The other matter is the matter of about 160,000 ballots not stamped. In law, any document not signed is generally deemed a nullity. That is the one that I find
very
yes. I'm curious as to how the Supreme Court will rule on this particular matter, because the law looks at a document not signed as a worthless piece of paper. And 160,000 votes is huge. So how did it happen?
To make the difference.
How did it happen? Were those ballots the result of massive thumb printing, which usually happens in elections? Some people will sit somewhere and just be doing massive thumb printing. Or were they simply oblivious? I mean, the NNPP now, were they simply oblivious of the danger in not having ballots stamped? Because amidst the euphoria of having won the election, because no one can deny that the NPP won the election in that state. They even dominated other elections, House of Assembly, the rest of them. But how do you explain 160,000 ballots from the stronghold of the NNPP not stamped? That is the aspect, the issue of, and then our parties have to be serious. It is irresponsible for you to know that this is what the law says. Section 177, 8 of the 1999 Constitution. You have to be a member of the party. And it was in July, I think July 6, according to the tribunal, that they took the register before INEC. What were they waiting for? You waited until the election has ended. So if the Supreme Court deems this matter fatal to his case, then I pity the governor. I was in Kano, and Kano was very calm on Friday. That was not what I expected. Although some parents went and quickly withdrew their children because they didn't know what would happen. But Kano was
were waiting for the Supreme Court.
Perhaps, but some are saying that, oh, it's no longer popular because of the demolitions, because the demolitions also affected poor people. And some thugs used the opportunity of the demolition to loot people's shops. Many of those victims have not forgiven the government of the day. So perhaps that was why. And then you have to praise the Commissioner of Police, who already struck a deal with both parties that no matter the outcome, there should be no jubilation. So it's a dicey matter. The courts will decide. But
Omega, we've seen this before. So we won't preempt the Supreme Court. I remember, is it 2015? Yusuf and Dakuku put aside.
Yes.
As a
I wanted to
tribunal level,
yes.
Dakuku won. At the Court of Appeal, Dakuku won. But when it got to the Supreme Court, that is when we had that, look, this card reader was not legislated upon.
Yes.
You see,
does
not have any
in the Zamfara case, I want to point out, this thing...
No, we're still in
Kano.
In Kano now.
Okay, yes. On the Kano case, the fact that just one point is invalidating all the work that the NNPP put into winning the elections must be critically looked into by the Supreme Court, because there are decided cases on eligibility, for nomination by parties, and I think that just merely using that to invalidate the entire election, the Supreme Court should be very careful with this, because our jurisprudence is still growing, because the Fourth Republic is just 24 years. So we're still trying to fine-tune some of these rough edges. But it needs to be stated that that issue of eligibility, it has to be really defined by the National Assembly. It cannot be left only to the courts to determine. Otherwise, you'll find out that people will be robbed of their well-deserved victories. And that will now mean that the judiciary is, with due respect, is helping to unwittingly subvert democracy, which, of course, is not the intent of the judiciary. So definitely you cannot just leave it hanging. The appeal court in this case ruled this way, the Supreme Court ruled this way, the tribunal ruled this way. The National Assembly, I think, needs to urgently look at some
But the law is clear. It's the politician that is the problem here. The law is clear that you must submit your party register. Why would the NNPP wait until the 6th of July after the election before submitting? Were they not thinking that a party could try to exploit that?
No, but my question is that should the candidate then suffer for the inefficiency of the party that nominated.
No,
I'm just
the
asking.
good thing is that this is not the only issue.
Yes.
For me, the bigger issue is those unsigned and unstamped ballots. Yeah. I'm not so bothered about this one because I've seen the Supreme Court rule on this matter that this is not litigatable at the level of the tribunal. It's a pre-election matter. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of Peter Obi. This same kind of issue cropped up when they argued that, oh, he was not a member of the Labour Party. But the Supreme Court ruled in it dismissed the matter, if we still remember. So, but the bigger elephant in the room is the 160,000 ballots. What do we do about that? How come the ballots were not signed? Who is culpable for that? Yeah. Is it INEC that is culpable for that? Or some politicians just sat down somewhere and were just thumbprinting and after
that's what I'm saying.
Because if the court had not allowed APC to go and check ballots, you know we would never have discovered that some ballots were not signed. How do you explain ballots not signed, not stamped? I mean,
okay. Now,
so that for me would be the big issue. Yeah. The Supreme Court had ruled on this matter before, and I don't think that they have a history of going against their own previous judgment, because this happened just recently now. The PAPC as well as the Supreme Court both had ruled on the matter of eligibility and all that in favor of Peter Obi. So if it's similar to this as we can see, then it looks like the outcome could be really predictable on that matter. But there's the bigger issue, which is those ballots.
But that also raises the question of this margin of lead principle. Since that Kogi election in 2015, after Nwaka died, during which Nwaka died, you see, this margin of lead principle, which is in INEC's guidelines, it's not in the Electoral Act, it's not in the Constitution. It has been, it has been a kind of topsy-turvy. Yeah, no,
it's not a margin of lead.
The margin of lead is in the Zamfara case, but what I'm saying is...
No, we are not talking about Zamfara yet. You seem eager to go to this Zamfara. This one, they said, okay, since they are not stamped, then they are not valid ballots. That was the argument. And then they deducted those invalid ballots, enabling APC to overtake, because 166,000 is a lot of ballots.
Let's quickly move to Zamfara State. The tribunal has ordered, the court has ordered that a kind of round should be held in 3 local governments. What is the implication of this?
It is that's what makes the matter potentially very, very tantalizing. INEC has been ordered to hold fresh elections in 3 local governments, and the court nullified Dadalawan's return. It told them to conduct fresh elections in 3 local governments where results from polling units were not counted or where elections did not take place. So we look at Maradun, which is the former governor's local government. APC argued that the genuine result was not recorded. You get the argument that it was the returning officer who, do you know that the returning officer testified against INEC? That look, the real result was not accepted. And he said the real result was set aside by the REC. That was his argument. I think the court was convinced. One, REC has no power to overrule the outcome of an election. That law was done in such a way that RECs in states, they are permanent in nature. So they fraternize a lot with politicians. But when they bring these arrows, it could be electoral, it's not even known to the voting community in that area, it's not known to the politicians. So they believe that RO will be much more even-handed, will be much more objective than the REC who had been there and could have been influenced. So the law does not permit REC to say, okay, this result here, I cancel. this is what should happen. So that RO went and testified against INEC that that was not his result. So the court then said, okay, the result for Maradun invalidated, go and do a fresh election there. That's the peculiar case for Maradun.
What are we looking at here?
Maradun, I was looking at the Maradun has no less than 90,000 registered voters.
Wow.
If he gets overwhelming votes from Maradun, and then Birnin-Magaji, there are about 45,000 registered voters in 82 polling units across 4 wards. So look at the figure, 45K here, more than 90,000 here. It is by far then, before we even go to Bukkuyum, Bukkuyum is just along the border with Kebbi and Niger. I think about 3, just a few polling units. But Maradun is the key, because the votes from Maradun alone, if they come out in numbers, can can get Matawale to overtake the governor. You know, the votes from Maradun are higher than the margin of victory, and we are not talking about Birnin-Magaji yet. We are not talking about Bukkuyum yet. You know, because Birnin-Magaji is all 4 wards. What happened in that election, I suspect that some people interfered in INEC's work, because the argument was, how you stop election from holding in some places, whereas you conducted elections there during the presidential election. But this one, you just told the returning officer, we are not going to have election here this time around. We can't have, and when people say, oh, why are the courts intervening? They fail to realize that there are some terrible things that compromised INEC staff can do that can rubbish the process. And if you don't have the court to say, oh, INEC was wrong here, INEC should have allowed this to happen and all that. How do we? That means the injustice will just the injustice will be fait accompli.
Emeka, Zamfara, now looking at this trend now, and 3 local governments, I'm sure they might want to take it to the Supreme Court and want to see what the Supreme Court will.
Yeah, just like should the actions or inactions of INEC staff be used to quote unquote rob a candidate of his or her victory? This I'm talking about the margin of lead principle that was just used to declare the result of the election. But you have cancelled votes or areas where elections were not held. Despite that, you still went ahead and declared a winner in the election. So,
are you talking about the Kogi thing?
Yeah, it has continued.
Because INEC gave the returning officer.
Yes, it has continued like that. It has become a trend, and that has raised the argument whether this margin of lead principle that is in INEC's guidelines, does it supersede the electoral? I mean, it's not in the Electoral Act. It's not in the Constitution. So why should INEC officials?
If it's not mathematically possible to overtake.
So, no, that's what I'm saying. That in Zamfara, why was a winner declared when you had all these votes that were not in contention? Why was a winner declared when you didn't have these votes in contention?
Because the winner was declared because INEC sat down and released results for a local government, and the returning officer said, no, that result was not my result.
Yeah, so
it could have happened
using the margin of lead principle.
It could have happened in Adamawa, if not for the vigilance, especially of journalists.
Yeah, using the margin of lead principle.
You said they should come back at 11 o'clock. By 9 o'clock, the rec, compromised rec for that matter, then came forward and said, this is the person who has won the election.
That's why we need serious
are you the
reforms.
No, the thing is you see, whatever reforms you have in Maker,
the human beings,
these individuals, no one can argue that against the fact that there are people compromised in INEC. Whether in their IT team or other teams, who connive with politicians. When I say the politician is the problem,
is the problem.
I know what I'm saying. They connive with the politician to give advantage to the wrong person. So that wrong person gets declared winner. You expect the court to do justice.
Yeah.
You see, we can't say, oh, it's been declared winner, then the matter should not be looked at again. That is, somebody went before the tribunal to argue that no, that was not the result.
That's what I'm saying. We're saying the same thing, definitely.
What, did they not jail the electoral the other day in Akwa Ibom when he connived with politicians to bring a result that was not the product of the election? So the court, election litigation will not stop in our country. Because if you cheat me, whether you've been allowed to win or not, whether you've been declared winner or not, if you cheat me, I will go to court now.
The court has actually remedied this.
It's not in our country alone that people go to court. Hearing all this argument, including senior lawyers saying that courts should not determine outcome of election. When people will not follow the laid down procedure,
INEC should do the right thing.
Did the courts not decide in Al Gore versus George W. Bush? Was it not the court that decided? I mean, so this is the thing. If INEC, there are some things that INEC does that revolts against reasonableness. I mean, revolts against reason. People have the obligation to go to the court and say, look, INEC connived with my enemy or my opponent and had me
gave me the advantage.
At that point, the court will step in.
All right, and finally, touch not my anointed.